Doctor, do eggs raise cholesterol? Does eating eggs raise my blood cholesterol levels? It's a question I get asked often. Hi, I'm Dr. Chan. I'm a medical doctor from Singapore, and today I would like to tackle this question. Does eating eggs raise one's blood cholesterol levels? My answer? Yes, for most people, it does. Egg consumption will likely raise blood cholesterol to some degree for most people. But the degree of increase is not the same for everybody. It varies from person to person. And the degree of increase depends on one, the person's existing baseline level of dietary cholesterol intake. That is, how much cholesterol is a person eating, whether the person eats very little cholesterol or already have a very high level of cholesterol in his or her diet. It also depends on that person's cholesterol absorber status. Let me elaborate. Starting with sharing with you some studies that shows that egg consumption will likely raise blood cholesterol to some degree for most people. In this study, 17 college students were given an additional egg to add to their diet every day for 3 weeks, and then given an isocaloric eggless food to add to their diet every day for another 3 weeks. And this was what they found. Their mean LDL cholesterol levels were 12% higher during the 3 weeks when they were consuming an extra egg every day compared to the 3 weeks when they were not. And this increase in LDL cholesterol levels when eating an extra egg a day was found in 13 out of the 17 college students in the study. That is, the majority of them showed an increase in LDL cholesterol when eating an extra egg a day. Okay, this was a small trial involving only 17 study subjects. So let's look at bigger studies. In this 2020 meta-analysis of 66 randomized controlled clinical trials with more than 3,000 participants, the authors of this paper concluded that egg consumption can significantly increase LDL cholesterol. That was why I said egg consumption will likely raise blood cholesterol to some degree for most people. Not all, but most people. Now let me elaborate on the second part, that the degree by which egg consumption raises blood cholesterol varies from person to person. Let's refer back to the first study that I shared with you about the 17 college students. They found that 13 out of the 17 study subjects had their blood cholesterol levels raised when eating an extra egg a day. The degree by which the LDL cholesterol levels increase varies. Some of them had their LDL cholesterol levels raised by only a few percentage points, whilst others had their LDL cholesterol levels raised by as much as 42%. The impact of eating an extra egg a day on their LDL cholesterol levels varied very significantly. The reason for this individual variation can be due to a few different factors, including number one, the person's existing baseline level of dietary cholesterol intake. Scientists have found that the degree by which a person's blood cholesterol increases from eating high cholesterol foods is affected by a person's baseline dietary cholesterol intake levels. That is, if you get a group of people to start eating more cholesterol, for example, by eating more eggs, those who started off with a lower baseline intake of dietary cholesterol, when they increase their intake of dietary cholesterol from low levels to moderate levels, the degree of the increase in their blood cholesterol levels would likely be significantly greater than the increase in blood cholesterol levels of people who started off with a higher baseline dietary cholesterol intake before they started adding more cholesterol into the diet. Let me put it another way. If you take two groups of people, Group A, comprising of people who eat very little cholesterol in the diet. That is, people who start off with a very low level of dietary cholesterol intake. And Group B, people who eat a lot of cholesterol in the diet. That is, people who start off with a high level of dietary cholesterol intake. Then you make both groups add more eggs, the same amount for both groups to their diet every day. You would find that the increase in blood cholesterol levels as a result of adding the same amount of eggs into their diet is likely to be greater for Group A as compared to Group B. That is, the impact of additional egg consumption on raising blood cholesterol levels is likely to be more significant for people who started off with a low intake of cholesterol in their diets than for people who are already eating a lot of cholesterol in their diet. So, the degree by which egg consumption raises blood cholesterol varies from person to person. It can be affected by a person's baseline level of dietary cholesterol intake. It can also be affected by a person's cholesterol absorber status. Let me elaborate. The ability to absorb dietary cholesterol varies from person to person, meaning the ability to absorb into our bodies the cholesterol that we eat varies from person to person. Some people are genetically hyper-absorbers. They absorb a lot of the cholesterol that they eat, whilst others are genetically hypo-absorbers. That is, they absorb very little of the cholesterol that they eat. For hypo-absorbers, their blood cholesterol levels are less affected by the increased intake of dietary cholesterol, such as by eating more eggs. Whilst for hyper-absorbers, any increase in intake of dietary cholesterol, such as by eating more eggs, will raise their blood cholesterol levels a lot more in comparison. So to this question, does eating eggs raise one's blood cholesterol levels? My answer is yes. For most people, it does. Egg consumption will likely raise blood cholesterol to some degree for most people. But the degree of increase is not the same for everybody. It varies from person to person, and the degree of increase depends on the person's existing baseline level of dietary cholesterol intake, as well as that person's cholesterol absorber status. When I was making this video, I was prepared to see many people reacting to this video, potentially leaving angry comments to say that they disagree with my answer. Some viewers will be angry and leave comments saying eggs are healthy, whilst others would highlight that they read somewhere or learned from some YouTube videos that it is perfectly okay, it is safe or even healthy to have high cholesterol levels. I am not commenting on whether I agree or disagree with all these different statements, because the goal of this video focuses only on tackling this question: whether eating eggs will likely raise one's blood cholesterol levels. This video is not intended to tackle the questions of whether consumption is good for health or not, or about the impact of high cholesterol levels on cardiovascular diseases risk. Another comment that I expect to get is this: Doctor, you are wrong. I eat at least an egg a day, and my blood cholesterol levels, including my LDL cholesterols, are all at very healthy levels. To people who are likely to say this, let me refer you again to my full answer to the question. The impact of egg consumption on one's blood cholesterol levels varies from person to person, and the degree of increase also varies from person to person. So just because you have good blood cholesterol levels, even though you're eating quite a lot of eggs regularly, does not mean that it would be the same for everybody. We must be mindful of individual variability. Not everybody react to egg consumption in the same way. Let me share with you this real story. I do a lot of training and coaching, group coaching or one-to-one coaching, to help people review, change, and improve their lifestyle and diet to better improve their control of their diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or other lifestyle and diet-related chronic diseases. A few years ago, I had this patient come to me for one-to-one coaching. He wanted me to coach him to make changes to his diet to help him improve his high cholesterol levels. And when I probed a little further into his dietary habits, he said, Doctor, I used to be very mindful of my intake of foods that are high in cholesterol. But that was only until a few months ago when I read somewhere and also saw some YouTube videos that said that eating high cholesterol foods would not and does not raise blood cholesterol. So I began to be less mindful of the cholesterol that I eat. I began to more freely indulge in high cholesterol foods, including eggs, which I love a lot, thinking that it would not raise my blood cholesterol. But recently, I had a blood test and I was shocked to find that my cholesterol levels, including my LDL cholesterol levels, have all skyrocketed. Without going into details, after a few months of helping him holistically review, change, and improve his diet through a series of one-to-one coaching sessions, including cutting down on his consumption of eggs, glad to share that this particular patient had his blood cholesterol levels brought down to much healthier levels after he has made the necessary dietary changes and improvements. At this point, I must emphasize that not everybody will be able to improve their blood cholesterol levels through dietary changes. The patient in this story that I just told you was able to lower his blood cholesterol levels through changing his diet, likely because he belongs to the group of people whose blood cholesterol levels are more impacted by the amount of cholesterol that they eat. We must be mindful of individual variability. But regardless of whether one's blood cholesterol can be improved by dietary change or not, when it comes to preventing, controlling, and combating diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, and other lifestyle and diet-related chronic diseases, we must not be solely and overly dependent on medications alone. Improving our lifestyle and dietary habits must be the cornerstone in our efforts to optimally prevent, control, and combat these lifestyle and diet-related chronic diseases. I'm Dr. Chan. Let habits be thy medicine. Eat well and be well.